Hey, this is Tyler with Dieselgeek, and we're going to go over the installation and assembly of the latest iteration Sigma 5 from Mark IV short shifter kit. This iteration features a cast steel front to back section, retains our billet aluminum front to back cable end, our aluminum bell crank, and the hardware included with the kit is the perfect pivot bushings for the side to side cable end, the 8mm lock nut for securing the front to back bracket, our pivot pin bushings, the 4 bolts for the cable end, the slider, the 5mm alignment pin, 2 shiny metal clips, the pivot pin, the cable end pin, and the slider pin. So before we delve into the install, Jim's going to show us how to remove the stock shifter from your transmission. Then we're going to assemble this bell crank in the correct orientation, and then I'll tag back in and we'll put this shifter on the transmission.
Hey, this is Jim with Dieselgeek, and today I'm going to show you how to remove a stock 5-speed shifter from an O2J transmission. This is a Mark IV transmission from 2000 to 2006. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to remove the side-to-side bracket. That's this bracket right here. And we're going to take the shiny metal clip loose, and it's right here on this axle shaft. You slide the shiny metal clip out of the way, set it aside, open the cable end by pushing the knurled ring that way and then turning it clockwise. And then basically take the bracket out like this and then set that aside. And the next step we're going to do is we're going to take the front to back bracket off. We're just going to loosen the 8mm nut with a 13mm socket or wrench and just loosen that bolt or nut, sorry. And then open the, like before, open the cable end by pushing that way and then turning it this way. And then you can take the cable out and move it back to neutral, which is like right here, and then you can just go up like that, and then that's it. That's all it takes to take the shifter out. Hey, this is Jim with Dieselgeek, and today I'm going to show you the ins and outs of assembling your side-to-side bracket for the Sigma shifter. This is the Sigma side-to-side bracket, and it is the same for 5-speed and 6-speed. So what you need to do is when you assemble this, you need to assemble it with the orientation the same. Like this is the slider, this is a Mark IV 5-speed bracket right here, this is the stock one, and this is the slider right here. And so you want to make sure and take the pin that is the slider pin, which is the larger diameter pin, and you know if you put it in here, you can see that it fits here, whereas the slider wouldn't fit on there because that's too small. But anyway, you take the slider pin and you put it in this hole so it matches what you have. And so then the cable end pin would go in the other hole. So the 5-speed Mark IV and the Sigma 6 use the same side-to-side bracket now. The holes are exactly the same, so you just need to make sure and make them match. And if you make them match, everything will be fine. And that's it. Hey, this is Jim with Dieselgeek, and today I'm going to show you how to convert your stock square-headed cable end over to a high-performance cable end to be used with the Dieselgeek Sigma shifter. The first thing that you need to do is you need to start with a cable end that is square-headed. This is a square-headed cable end. It has usually a cylindrical hole in it to go onto a pin. This is the oldest round-headed cable end that was used up until early 2001. It's completely rounded, so you can't use one of these for our inserts right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to, well, before I go there, I'm going to say that the cable end that you can use is not just the side-to-side cable end. You can use a front-to-back cable end from 2001 on also. Just got to make sure that it has the square head. So it can have a 10mm pin like this one, the bushing for a 10mm pin, or it can be the 8mm bushing like this one from the side-to-side, everything up to 2006 or 2007. So the other place where you can find the square-headed cable end is the side-to-side brackets from 2008 to 2020, really, or 2021. These work fine. You just have to get them off the pin. So to get them off of the pin, the plastic pin, there's a bump. You can see that right there. There's a bump that keeps the cable end on, and you just have to work it like this until you work it off the bump. And so once you've done that, you've removed the cable end, and then you can go and gut the cable end to prepare it for the bushings here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take one of these, this is a side-to-side cable end from early 2000s, and we're going to gut it. To do that, we're going to stick our needle nose pliers in the hole here, and we're going to grab onto the hard plastic insert, and we're going to separate. We're going to twist and separate it from the rubber. So once we've done that, we have just rubber left. So once the hard plastic's out, you're going to go in from the bottom, and you're going to slip the pliers in between the rubber and the hard plastic shell, and then you're just going to grab the rubber, and sometimes the spring flies off, and you're just going to grab the rubber and just twist, twist, twist until it pops out. And so once it pops out, you have a nice shell ready for the inserts. So I'm going to go grab, actually I'm not going to go grab that ring, I'm just going to take it off of here. And if that happens, all you have to do is just put the spring back on like that, and then there's a bump right here that you need to line this notch up with, and just slip it on the 3 fingers like so until it goes on. So that's fixed and ready to go. So once you've done that and you've freed up the ring, first let me say about the ring. This plastic is glass reinforced plastic. It's very, very tough. And on the side to side, it is under almost no load whatsoever. The front to back, you know, you're banging into gears back and forth, and it's under load, and that's why we use an aluminum cable end. But for the side to side, they're under almost no load, maybe 2 or 3 pounds of load at the most. So it really doesn't need to be some super heavy duty billet aluminum cable end for the side to side. So that said, I'm going to go ahead and take one of the inserts, and this is Delrin, and we're going to start it in the inner ring, and you can see that there's an inner ring. There's 2 little half circles here, and the cable end is going to key onto that. I mean, the bushing is going to key onto that. And so you just get it lined up, and then once they're lined up, you can just push it on, and now you've converted the cable end over to high performance. So once you've done that, if you have a stock type shifter, you can do that, and it goes on just fine. And if you have a Sigma shifter, it goes on the same sort of pin just fine. And you're ready for installing into the car, and that's it.
Okay, now that we've got our high performance perfect pivot bushings installed in our cable end, and we have our bell crank assembled with the pins in the correct orientation, we can get going with this install. The first step is going to be to just get the 4 Allen screws started into the cable end, and then we will take our assembled front to back section here, and we'll bring it over to the transmission. And before we align it on the selector shaft, we just want to make sure that the cable end is going to slide nice and freely on this front to back cable. This one's feeling pretty good, but on some of the cars, the cable is a bit oversized. And if you run into that where it's binding, what you'll need to do is just take a number 2 Phillips and slide it down here and just give it a little bit of a spread here. It doesn't take a lot, but that'll just open up that cable end so that it slides on an oversized cable a little bit more easily. But once you've got that cable end sliding on the cable nice and freely, what you want to do is you want to locate the double tooth on the selector shaft. On the 02J transmission, we have this covered in yellow crayon, but on the 02J transmission, when the selector shaft is in neutral, such that it can move up and down, it pretty much faces directly at the engine, and it actually lines up with this bolt right here. So anyway, you want to align that double tooth with the double keyway in the front to back on the Sigma labeled end of the front to back bracket. So let's just take that, slide it onto our cable, line up our divot, which denotes where the keyway is, and when it's lined up right, it'll just drop right on there. And then next, we'll grab our 8mm flange lock nut and just spin it down. And we're going to go ahead and tighten this nut on the selector shaft. And you want this good and tight, but you don't want to go crazy. We've had customers in the past that have snapped that stud, so that's the reason for the word of caution there. So it'll click into gear when you tighten that nut, and you just bring it back to neutral so it moves up and down. So the next step is we'll grab our assembled bell crank, and we'll slip one of the pivot bushings, one of the pin bushings there, and we'll put our slider on our slider pin. We'll take our other pivot bushing and just drop that into the hole there, and we'll just slide this all in together here like this. And then the next thing we're going to check is just make sure that this moves freely. Sometimes in an environment that uses a lot of heavy road salt, corrosion will develop in this tube, and so if that happens, then you'll end up with a bell crank that's stiff, like it'll drag, and you just want this to move nice and freely. If you end up with, if you suspect that there's corrosion in the tube, you can get in there with a wire brush like this and scrub that corrosion out. Additionally, a 15/32 inch drill bit works pretty well if you just run it, by hand. So anyway, now that that bell crank is moving nice and smoothly, you can take your side-to-side cable end and slip it onto the cable. And usually you have to kind of back this out and slide this all in here together so that everything lines up nice. And then you'll just take your two shiny metal clips and click them on to the ends of the pins there. So now this shifter is installed. At this point, all we need to do is perform an alignment. And the first step to performing the alignment is going to be to lock the selector shaft in the home position. And to do that, we're just going to push down a little bit from neutral, about 7 or 8 millimeters, while we're simultaneously pushing in on this, this L locking pin. And when you find the happy spot, that pin will drop in and it'll turn. So if we want to see that again, when we push down and find the happy spot, the pin will just drop in and turn. And once that selector shaft is locked, then everything's pretty much locked together. This doesn't want to move, and this doesn't want to move either. So now we'll go inside the cabin and we will pin the stick with the 5mm alignment pin. So this is a precision 5mm pin, and you'll just slip into the top loop, and then you'll guide the stick over and align the pin with the lower bore, and just give it a little bit of a twist back and forth until it drops down all the way like that. And so now that we have both the stick and the selector shaft locked in the home position, we'll go ahead and set our cables. So we're going to work on the side-to-side cable first. That's by far the more critical of the two. And so this one, you're going to push down on the selector shaft just a little bit, and then give that side-to-side cable a little bit of a wiggle and kind of press it back towards the firewall, and then let go. You don't want to put this cable under tension or compression, but you do want to slide it back as far as it'll go. And then once that's done, you just turn the ring. And that side-to-side cable will click into place, and now the side-to-side cable position is locked. So from there, we're just going to snug up the 4 bolts on our front to back bracket and just bottom them out by hand and just go in a crisscross pattern. And you really don't need a lot of torque on these guys. So yeah, just go ahead and then I like to go back and revisit again, just because sometimes want to loosen up as you tighten the other. Yeah, just snug those up. And now that shifter is adjusted and installed. So we'll just release the locking lever here, and we'll go into the cabin, and we'll pull our 5mm pin out. And now we're just going to check our gears. So first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and then we'll push down and grab reverse. And so at this point, if you've got all your gears and the engagement is nice and smooth, you're done. You just need to put your airbox back in and go for a test drive. If you're having problems finding some of your gears, then the first step is really just to go through that adjustment procedure again. If that's still not getting it, you probably have some play that's developed in the cabin shifter assembly and may need some bushings. And we have some troubleshooting and fine-tuning tips as well that follow. Anyway, thanks for watching. Okay, so this is the fine-tuning video. I'm not entirely happy with that shifter adjustment. First, second, and reverse all kind of feel less than awesome. So I'm going to show you another take on the shifter alignment, and we're gonna start with an elevator test. And so you're either going to need a helper or you're going to need to put your phone in your engine compartment and take a video. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to go from neutral, we're going to go just to the left over to the wall, and then we're going to go into first. And this trans really doesn't even want to go. But if I kind of force it, you can see that it dropped down. So over to the wall, and then push it into first, and you can see that bell crank kicks forward and the front to back bracket kicks down. And so what that tells me is that the effective length of this cable is just a little bit too short. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a Sharpie, and we're just going to put a little mark. We're just going to paint those threads there so we can kind of see where we're starting. there's 3 little threads that are painted right there. And what we're going to do at this point is we're just going to open this cable end again, and we're going to bring that cable out like 2 threads. They're not actually threads, but they look like threads. So we're just going to bring that out about 2 or 3 threads, and then we're going to go ahead and repeat. So we're going to go over to the wall and over into first. And it's still, it's better, but it's still just dropping down just a little bit. So we're going to go into the engine compartment again, and we're going to open this cable, and we're going to just go like 1 more thread there. All right. And we'll just go back and check again. Obviously, if you have a helper, then you can have your helper be in the car and push over to the wall and then go into first. And that was nice and smooth. It's actually, that bell crank is kicking up a little bit now. It really is a product of the kind of baked in slop to these MQB boxes. In particular, the plastic boxes are not great, but that's about as good as it's going to get with the stock cabin linkage. But at this point, we've got all of our gears that we can get to smoothly and easily. Now, if you've got that 1-2 elevator test dialed, so that the front to back bracket isn't jumping down when you go into first or second from the wall position, then and you're still having difficulty getting some of your gears, namely reverse and or fifth or sixth, then odds are you have slop in the linkage. If you have a Sigma shifter, you're 100% out in the engine compartment, so odds are your slop is in the cabin, likely from the forward pivot or first gear getter area. And so that's a exercise in diagnosing that slop, and then finding the correct parts to replace it, mostly from our bushings catalog. But if you have a pretty low mileage car and you're just having a little bit of difficulty getting your gears after a fresh Sigma install, and you've done the adjustment a couple times and you're not quite getting there, then this is the procedure for you. So thanks a lot.